Hi, Matthews Superstars. It's Mrs. Rigsby, Mrs. R, and I'm your new librarian. I am filming this today in our very own library at Matthews Elementary. And today I thought I'd give you a little bit of a taste of one of our favorite books that the second and third graders are reading currently. And I wanted the distance learners, hi everyone, to get a chance to read it as well. It's called Lulu and the Brontosaurus, and it's by an author named Judith Voirst. Now, if you know her name, if it sounds vaguely familiar, she also wrote a book called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I don't know if you guys had that read when you were in preschool or kindergarten or even first grade, but my kids had it read to them, and my son, Alexander, did not like the book, because the Alexander in the story was having a no good, terrible, very bad day. She wrote a book called Lulu and the Brontosaurus. And what I've been discussing with the second and third graders at Matthews is pay attention to the character. The main character, Lulu, is a little girl who's extremely stubborn and extremely spoiled. Pay attention to how she changes in the story from beginning to end. We call that character development. If we watched a beloved character change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, you can see this in movies and TV shows as well. So let's learn a little bit about Lulu, shall we? Oh yeah, Judith Voirst does something. She brings her own voice in as the author. Sometimes authors do that, and then they become the narrator or the teller of the story. Okay, all right, you don't have to tell me. I know that people and dinosaurs had never lived on Earth at the same time, and I know that dinosaurs aren't living now. I also even know that paleontologists, folks who study dinosaurs, decided that a dinosaur that was once called a Brontosaurus, a very nice name, shouldn't be called a Brontosaurus anymore. Change it to Apatosaurus, a kind of ugly name. But since I'm the person writing the story, I get to choose what I write, and I'm writing about a girl and a Brontosaurus. So, if you don't want to read this book, you can close it up right now. You won't hurt my feelings. And if you still want to read it, here goes. Chapter 1. There once was a girl named Lulu, and she was a pain. She wasn't a pain in the elbow. She wasn't a pain in the knee. She was a pain, a very big pain, in the butt. We always have to whisper that, right? Now Lulu was an only child, and her mom and her dad gave her everything she wanted. And guess what? Lulu wanted everything. Tons of candy, tons of toys, tons of watching, tons of cartoons on TV. And if her mom and her dad ever said, and they hardly ever said it, "Sorry, darling, we think you've had enough," Lulu would screech till the light bulbs burst and throw herself down on the floor, and then she would kick her heels and wave her arms, and pretty soon her mom and her dad would say, "Well, just this once," and let her have whatever it is that she wanted. Here's a picture of Lulu. Chapter 2. 2 weeks before Lulu's birthday, she announced to her mom and her dad that she wanted a Brontosaurus for her B-Day present. What did she say? What? A Brontosaurus? Yes, she wanted a Brontosaurus for a pet. At first, Lulu's mom and her dad just thought she was making a little joke, and then they saw, oh horrors, that she was serious. They patiently explained that a Brontosaurus is a quite enormous dinosaur who lives in forests, not in people's houses. Is that where a Brontosaurus would live? In a forest? I'm afraid that I'm not absolutely sure, but since I'm the person writing the story, I'm putting the Brontosaurus in a forest along with a lot of other wild beasts that I'm absolutely sure did not live on Earth when Brontosauruses were there. Anyway, Lulu's mom and her dad continued explaining to her, although Brontosaurus is into eating plants, not animals, including human animals like Lulu, and although it is cute in a long-necked, pin-headed kind of way, it is much too huge and too wild to be a good pet. A dog, a cat, a goldfish, a bird, a gerbil, a guinea pig. Yes, a Brontosaurus? Definitely no. Here's a picture of a Brontosaurus compared to the other animals. Chapter 3. No. Her mom and her dad were telling Lulu no. Lulu wasn't used to hearing no. And she really hated hearing no. To show how much she hated it, she screeched and screeched and screeched till all the light bulbs in the living room burst. "I want a brontosaurus for my birthday present," she said in between screeches. "I want a brontosaurus for a pet." "Well, maybe we could get you a nice pet rabbit," said her mom. "Or even," said her dad, "a nice pet rat." "No," screeched Lulu. "I want a brontosaurus for a pet." Then she threw herself down on the floor and kicked her heels and waved her arms and screeched some more. 4 days passed. 8 days, 10 days, 12 days passed. Lulu kept saying, "I want a brontosaurus." Her mom and her dad just kept on saying no. Lulu kept screeching and throwing herself on the floor and kicking her heels and waving her arms. Lulu's mom and her dad kept saying no. Until finally, on the 13th day, the day before Lulu's birthday, right after lunch, Lulu said to her mom and her dad, "Okay then, foo on you." She had terrible manners. "If you aren't going to get me a brontosaurus, I'm going out and getting one for myself." Lulu packed a small suitcase, said goodbye to her mom and her dad, and walked out the door. And they let her go. Partly because they thought she'd change her mind and come running back home in about 2 minutes, and partly because it was nice not to have her screeching and kicking and waving and being a pain. "Let's have a cup of tea and a couple of cookies," Lulu's mom said to her dad. "Excellent idea," her dad replied. So they went into the kitchen and started munching on some cookies and sipping tea. And pretty soon, they'd forgotten all about Lulu. Chapter 5. But Lulu hadn't forgotten that she was going to get herself a brontosaurus. And luckily for Lulu, there was a great big forest not too far from her house. The animals in that forest had never bothered anybody because nobody had ever bothered them. But watch out, creatures! Here came Lulu trudging through the forest, swinging her small suitcase back and forth, and in a quiet, loud voice that was sure to wake the napping animals from their naps, singing the song. Now, students, superstars, you know what? This song repeats, so feel free to sing along with Mrs. R. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. And yes, that song is annoying. And yes, when you see me in the halls when you guys are back at Matthews, please stop and I'll even sing along with you. I promise. The forest that Lulu was trudging through was overgrown with trees whose branches scratched her face and whose roots she tripped over. But Lulu hardly noticed because she was thinking just one thought, and you know what that was. So on she went, swinging her suitcase and singing her song too loud and annoying all the creatures in the forest and being the same big pain out there that she was back home in her house until, what do you think happened? Ready? Did you guys see that big snake in the tree? Slithering down from the branch of a tree came a long, fat, brown, black snake, who had been peacefully snoozing till Lulu woke him up. Sleepy and grumpy and hissing an exceedingly nasty hiss, he wrapped himself around Lulu, around and tighter, and told her she'd really be sorry that she had awakened him. "I'm going to squeeze you dead," he said. Okay, so snakes don't talk, but in my story they do. And Lulu said, "Not if I squeeze you deader." So Lulu squeezed the snake hard, and the snake yelled, "Ow!" and quickly unwrapped himself from Lulu. And Lulu, wiping some of the snake's sweat from her palms of her snake squeezing hands, went on trudging deeper into the forest. You can see right here where she's squeezing the snake. Chapter 6. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. Singing her brontosaurus song in a louder and louder voice, Lulu was waking up nappers all over the forest. Some were annoyed, some were extremely annoyed, and among them extremely annoyed was a silky, slinky lady tiger who yawned and stretched and rubbed her bright green eyes and then, with a ferocious roar, sprang out from behind some trees and pounced on Lulu. "You're a big pain," the tiger said, "so I'm going to eat you up for my afternoon snack." Said Lulu, "I'm bonking you on the head." And swinging with all her might, Lulu Bonk the tiger with her suitcase. The tiger yelled, "Ow!" and fell down in a pitiful black and orange striped heap on the forest floor. Lulu brushed off a few tiger hairs that were stuck to the side of her tiger bonking suitcase and went on trudging deeper into the forest. Chapter 7. As the afternoon turned into late afternoon and then into early evening, Lulu trudged even deeper into the forest. When she felt hungry, she opened her suitcase and took out a pickle sandwich. When she felt cold, she took out a sweater and socks. And when it got buggy, she opened her suitcase and took out some bug spray and sprayed. She was feeling a little tired, but she kept trudging and swinging her suitcase and singing her song. You all know what it is. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. I'm gonna get a brontosaurus for a pet. Now, a big black bear who liked listening to the music that insects make in the early evening couldn't hear their song because Lulu's was louder. Plus, a lot of the insects were deader because Lulu kept on spraying them with her spray. That made him mad. Then madder than that. He growled a thunderous growl, and then he lumbered heavily down the forest path and stood on his two hind legs in front of Lulu. Waving a big clawy paw in her face, he said, "You're interrupting my favorite program." Please don't give me an argument. In my story, bears are allowed to have favorite programs. "So I'm going to scratch you to pieces with my claws." Here's the scary bear. Now, some classes say, that doesn't quite look like a bear, but if you look at it up a grizzly bear, they can stand on their back legs. Lulu glared at the big black bear and put her hands on her hips. "Nobody's scratching me," she told the bear. Then she jumped as high as she possibly could in the air. Then she landed as hard as she possibly could on his foot. The bear yelled, "Ow!" and went limping away as fast as a bear could limp with one stomp foot. And after shaking some broken bear toenails off the bottoms of her bear stomping shoes, Lulu went trudging deeper into the forest. And here's a picture of her stomping on the bear's foot. Okay, you guys, we've come to chapter 8. What do you think so far of the book? What do you think of our main character, Lulu? She's feisty, isn't she? I will go ahead and continue reading the story to you through video and the Matthews School YouTube channel. Let me know, let your teachers know if you're enjoying this. I know the other classes here at Matthews have really enjoyed Lulu and her adventure. Do you think she's really going to meet a brontosaurus? Stay tuned. I'll see you next week. Have a good, safe week out there, Matthews Superstars.